is important, but there's also so many other perspectives, and they will represent local and regional organizations, municipalities and regions. We will start with Henrik Børsting Aagaard, Head of Planning, Vejle Municipality. Henrik. We also have Mika Uolamo, who's the city planning architect of the city of Oulu, Finland. I forgot to mention that the city of Vejle is in Denmark. And then we have the third realist, who is Susanna Bruzell, who is the sustainability strategist at the Municipality of Lund, Sweden. And then from the idealist side, we got more of sort of a think tank approach. We got Carina Aschan, who's the program manager at Viable Cities Sweden. And we just heard about the Hinku cooperation. We got Santtu Karhinen, who's the senior research scientist at the Finnish Environment Institute with Hinku. And we got all of us. So when we feel that we have something that we want to add to the discussion or question, if you are online, you just put it in the social media that was given to you. It will zoom in my phone and I'll pick it up. And if you're here, raise your hand and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. But I want to start out by hearing all of us, and starting with you and then going around the table to hear, actually, are climate neutral cities possible in the near future? We just heard that it's urgent. The climate is urgent. What's your take here, Henrik?
Yeah, now I should say it's not possible, but but I think it's possible. But I know it's very difficult. As Maximus said, if we can't kill the nature, then we will be killed. So we have to think. We have to believe it. I am an urban planner and work with urban planning, and then I must be a little idealist to work with this. So I have to believe that it's possible to have climate neutral cities, but also it's what we call a wicked problem. So you can't calculate the solutions. You have to work with a lot of things to make this work. And yes, in Vejle, we are working with urban planning, and how can we make the city grow and be carbon neutral. And it's very, very difficult to do that. But still, that is what we are trying to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Henrik. We will come back to the wicked problem. We move on to Mika.
Yeah, I'm also on the realist side here, but I do agree with Henrik that we always need to be at least somewhat idealistic. And I think it's actually the other sides of the coin. We cannot act without both of them. I could give you an example from my work desk. As an urban planner, on my desk there's a comprehensive plan of the major areas of my city. And the target year is 2040. And before that, we have to be climate neutral by 35, that's 10 years. And we have to end the nature loss by 30, 5 years. And we have to prove it so that it stands in the High Court. That's the realism we are standing at the moment, actually.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to come back to that you mentioned, Mika, both climate but also biodiversity, and the prove it thing is something that we are gonna put you on the line on. Over to you, Susanna.
Yeah, well, it is very challenging, and in Lund we have the goal to become climate neutral by 2030. It's only 5 years from now. But looking at the conditions that we have in Lund with really good public transport, we have fossil-free district heating and a very dense city, which makes it easy to use bike. We have to deliver. If someone should deliver, it should be us. But looking at the time perspective, working with city planning, we know that the plans we're realizing now were planned a number of years ago, and the plans we're doing now won't be realized until after 2030. So it is very challenging.
Thank you for that, also giving us the time perspective. Time is running out here, and a lot of things that we want to discuss will be ready after the time frame that we need to discuss. Thank you for that, Susanna. Moving on to the so-called idealist, Carina.
Thanks, Mattias. Stupid question, I must say. Of course, the cities will be climate neutral. It's, I mean, is it a choice? No, it's happening. Within viable cities, we have, in Sweden, we have 23 cities. They have made their plans, concrete plans, including Lund. They have a plan for the investments needed, everything to become climate neutral 2030. And it's happening as we're sitting here. In Europe, we have 112 cities that have done the same. They've made their plans, they are implementing, they have the investments, and yeah, it's happening.
It's happening. There we go. Idealist number one. Over to you, idealist number two, Santtu.
Yeah, so I'm the second idealist, but I think I'm not that idealist than you are. But yeah, we also in Finland we have 99 countries in Hinku network, and they are aiming towards climate neutrality. So quite many municipalities also in Finland are targeting this neutrality. But in this municipality group, we also see that there are very different kinds of cities and municipalities with respect to how urban, how rural they are. And this defines what kind of opportunities they have to like what kind of actions they can make to reach the emission targets. And of course, as Jukka pointed out in his presentation, it depends on what scope of emissions we are targeting. If we are looking at the scope 1, 2, for example, it is much more easier to reach carbon neutrality. But if we look at consumption-based emissions, then the picture is totally different. And in Hinku network, we are now shifting the focus more towards also this consumption-based emission perspective. So we also in this municipality group, we see that like the global sustainability is reached after we like reduce emissions enough measured with consumption-based emissions.
Thank you. I'm just assuming that we're all on the same page here when it comes to the understanding of scope 1, 2, and 3. But let's just remember that some of us might not be ready for that. We'll give it a pass. But from now on, let's make sure everybody can follow our discussion. I want to zoom in on where you mentioned, Susanna, if not us, then whom? And that could be true for a given city like Lund, but it could also be true for the whole of the Nordics. And in the introduction, we heard that the Nordics might have come further than many other regions, but we also heard in Jukka's presentation that it's not all that good when you look at the total numbers when they add up. So what are the Nordic preconditions for climate neutral cities? Susanna, you first.
I would say we'd had very high environmental goals for a long time, leading us to where we are now. But also, like for my city, we have really good public transport, which means that people can travel in a sustainable way. We have also the energy system, which helps us. We have district heating, which is quite unique for at least for I think it's all the Nordic countries, at least Sweden, which when you're looking at the European perspective, it's quite unique and helps us a lot. And in Lund, when we got our fossil-free district heating, our emissions reduced quite drastically. So that helped us a lot. Maybe someone else want to fill in?
Yes, Henrik, in the Danish perspective, what are the preconditions that would help you?
Well, in Denmark, we have a law that says that we have to be climate neutral in 2050 and that we have to reduce 70% in 2030. And in Vejle, well, we are not front runners, but we are striving to beat. So we have a climate plan from 2020, and in fact, we follow this plan to reduce carbon. For example, we have a lot of energy plants with solar cells and with windmills and so on. If those projects we have in planning now, we will reach the goal in 2030 by that. And besides that, this 2020 plan, we have a lot of initiatives and a lot of things. For example, we have our buses are electric buses now. The vehicles we have in the municipality, they are electric, and they try to get us cycle more in the town and so on. A lot of initiatives, small and big initiatives we have. Yeah.
Right. And Mika, you mentioned your fairly aggressive 2030 and 2035 targets. What are the preconditions in Finnish municipalities that are helpful towards this kind of targets?
Well, here I have to be a bit realistic.
Yeah, that's your role here.
Nasty way, because we have all kinds of limits that we have decided, it's politicians, but they are usually not so keen on making actions to reach those goals. We have made the easy ones, like the district heating is. We have reduced the amount of peat almost to zero. We use only wood, and we are slowly moving even to electric district heating and using the excessive heat from power plants and so on. If we get, we have the positive side is that we have a huge potential of wind power in our region. We can become the Persian Gulf of the Nordics in a green way, maybe. So we can produce more wind electricity than we use, and we can the excess electricity we can produce. For example, hydrogen and other kind of e-fuels, so we can give more than we consume. But then again, that doesn't reduce our own emissions so much, so we have a lot to do. We have done the easy ones, now it's the time to change the thinking in other aspects, for example, in land use.
Let's now turn to our optimist and idealist here. We hear on the one hand that there are great preconditions. We have huge potential. The legislation is there, the public transport is there, and so forth. But we also hear that the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. It's getting a lot harder now. What's your view?
I wanted to bring on the table the social progress index of the Nordics. We have I mean, you know about a different way of measuring GDP, just looking at our opportunities and stuff like that. We have that precondition. We have the opportunity. We have the health. We have everything compared to other countries in Europe where they might need to deal with other issues before they can even think about climate. So for us, it's so much easier, I agree. And perhaps low-hanging fruits have been taken, yeah, but we are still picking them. I can come up with one example for in Sweden. A couple of years ago, it was really big issue that the Swedish government decided not to have the reduction duty in the like green renewable fuels in the petrols in Sweden, and the cities were really upset, and the plans were gonna, go into, we're not gonna make it. We even said that Sweden not gonna make the goals, but now we don't hear that much about it because we just turned around and started looking at other issues to deal with. Are there other fruits that we can pick? Yes, there are. So the plans are still there, even though we, like I said a couple of years ago, we were in panic, it's not going to work. Also, I would like to bring up our national level, even though we often don't like them, and they're not doing what we want them to do, the cities would say. But compared to other countries, they're with us. I work with the European cities that try to do what we are doing in the Nordics, and they have, in some countries, they have national levels working against them, saying that this is not even important for you, you should deal with other stuff, and they still work on their plans to become climate neutral.
Santtu, I want to hear your view also on this low-hanging fruit analogy, because often I feel that the first solar panels are expensive and then they get cheaper. First electric cars are not that great, then they get better. So is it really true that fruit gets sort of harder and harder to pick, or does it actually get easier?
It depends on the sector, what you are considering. I would like to emphasize here that in regions and municipalities, we cannot do everything by ourselves without the support from the national policies. So we implement the national policies on a regional scales. We can draw up different kinds of plans, energy plans that reduce national emissions and so forth. But we need to have this support to implement them. And to get some actions up to speed, we need, for example, we need subsidies at first. We need to, for example, machinery, electrifying machinery. We need to have some subsidies, and then the market starts to evolve, and then emissions are reduced. But we need in these cases the support. And what we do in Hinku network and in Finland also, we calculate for all of the municipalities the emissions for free each year. And that is in the climate law. It is our duty to calculate those. And that information, it provides the overall picture of the heterogeneity in Finland and across municipalities. So what if we do some kind of national policies, to what regions that policies affect on? Where are the effects, and how should those maybe in some negative influences be compensated also? So, but yeah, it depends on the sector how it starts to evolve. So some low-hanging fruits have been gathered, but there are still things to do on the regional scale, because we have the land use monopoly and so forth. So yeah.
Can we, from you two idealists here, heat up the discussion a little bit? Because we started out by hearing Henrik saying that it's a wicked problem. It's hard. We don't even know how to calculate, and there's trade-offs. Just tell them no. Tell them that it's easy and what to be done, and then let's see what they answer. Come on, idealist. Go for it.
It's easy.
It's easy. Why?
No, I don't think anyone can say that it's easy. But like I said, it's happening. So, I mean, even if whatever happens, it's happening. And I think that what we need to do more is to listen to what the cities have to say, how what they are struggling with. And that's what we try to do, to bring the national and local level together to find ways to go, because we need to work together on this, instead of, we have to change the mindset kind of from the control of the from somewhere, that we have national control, and the cities have to be able to pursue on their ideas on how to become climate neutral, because every city is different. We can't have one policy or one rule to cover it all, and that's why I'm so positive, because the cities are actually trying. They are even doing stuff that they might not be allowed to do in a national context. So yeah, I just have so much faith in the cities, because yeah.
Yeah, go for it, and then Santtu.
I'll bring in a challenge. To reach our 2030 goals, we need to reduce the emission from traffic, which we've heard about today, with 90%. It's really challenging. And Lund is a growing city, and still we are decreasing traffic on our roads. And also only every third travel in Lund is done by car in our whole municipality, so we are still good. And we're also winning a lot of prizes for working with traffic in our municipality. But by reaching 90% reduction, that's really challenging. And you mentioned the change in our fossil fuels, where they took away the green mix. which of course affects our plans. And also looking at the national level, when we are working with city planning and we are growing municipality, the National Transport Authority and the regional authority wants us to secure the traffic infrastructure and to build bigger roads, because they say it's needed, and still we are reducing traffic. But on the other hand, they really want us to invest in the roads, which doesn't make any sense for us. So that's a really big conflict, I would say.
Deal with it.
Yeah, because you would need to actually make the private vehicle usage harder. Like, then you would get the emission reductions. But instead
it is quite hard in Lund. It's very restricted.
Yeah. Instead you build the roads, and for example in Oulu we are building roads and making car traffic easier.
Exactly. That's the nasty reality. We have the kind of nice talking strategies in every city. We are doing the actions on a small scale. We are maybe building more bicycle roads. That doesn't lead to less car traffic. And we are doing all the kind of nice things of which everybody can agree. Almost everybody. I think that's kind of a self-delusional way of dealing with the big actions. For example, in Finland we have the tradition of making a traffic system plan for the biggest city regions. And in the beginning of the last planning period, many officials said that the time is running out. It is now or never that we have to deal with the emissions of the traffic. That was said by many officials. But what did we get on the paper? New roads. Of course, some money for public transport, but it's way too little. And the impact assessment said that those actions will reduce the emissions of traffic by 4% to 2040. And we had to be neutral by 35. So it's way too little, way too late.
Mika, that was realism beyond what I was hoping for. how do we
ask for it?
Yeah, how do we deal with it? How do we break this impasse?
Well, now comes my idealistic side. What we actually need is total systemic change of our thinking. We have to realize that the nature is the basis, is the basement of our living house. If we destroy it, we will not have a society, we will not have an economy. And it's happening at the moment in our eyes. And by far the nature and climate has been kind of one person in the table negotiating and to compromise. But that's not the case anymore. The nature and climate, they are boundaries for our safety. And if we understand that,
that is totally allowed. If you feel that you want to
then we will do the action. Thank you.
Susanna, I want to bring you in on this because, and then you, Henrik, because it's very similar to what you described in Lund, where you do something and then regional or country does something else. How do we find the alignment?
Well, we're working with our comprehensive plan now. We have tried to get rid of the traffic system investments, talking about our work with sustainable transport. But also I would like to bring up a good example that we're actually doing right now, working together with the businesses in the city. It's called Coaction. It's a demonstrator from Viable Cities, where the city working together with a number of big companies, the university and private actors, to find new solutions to reduce the traffic emissions. And we as a municipality, we can't really affect them, but together we can do a lot of things. And there's a real movement in this project, and everyone wants to join, and we have to bring in other companies different from what we thought from the beginning, because everyone wants to join, everyone wants to be on the train and to help save the climate. So it's very positive.
Wow. Henrik, would that work in a Vejle context, or how do you get people aboard? Can you say that it's about a totally different nature-based solutions, or?
Well, I don't think that would work in Vejle. In fact, public transport has declined in a city like Vejle and city, in Eastern Jutland, and the traffic is growing. In fact, Corona crisis make a leap in traffic growing. In fact, afterwards, because people they got from public transport to cars instead. And I think traffic is growing more. It's growing with the economic growth. So how do we decouple those things? I think that's the question. Not only getting people to cycle or to public transport. We should do that, of course, but it's not enough. How can we decouple economic growth and traffic growth? And that's very difficult, very difficult. I don't know how we do it.
and the decoupling, and I think that's a key issue, especially if cities are also growing, like Lund, for instance. And the decoupling, I'm thinking that hopefully, Carina, within your 112 cities around Europe and 27 in Sweden alone, hopefully you have some answers there for us.
Sorry, we have a...
Hopefully you have some answers within your network.
Yeah, I think the example Susanna brought up about how the different actors in the cities are working together is a really good example of a solution. It has been calculated that a city actually only has control over 7% of the emissions in a city, the city administration. So they need to bring... it has to be brought into like a more, we have to look at climate neutrality as a collective problem in the city, and bring the private sector and all the actors together and work together, mission orientated, like we do in the 23 cities in Sweden and the 112 in Europe. And I have seen that also big industries that are the big emitters, they really want to change. It's not as if we have to work against them. And also what we are doing in Viable Cities in Sweden with the cities, we have these climate city contracts you might have heard of, where the national level is together with the cities committed to certain aspects that they need to change. For example, you're talking about the roads and everything. We have the transport administration there. They promise the cities that they will listen to them and they will try to see if there are policies that are actually working against them. And we find that all the time. We find also policies between the different national actors that they are not, so well aligned. They might contradict each other. And I think just this creating this movement, working together, that is, it sounds a bit idealistic, but I'm an idealist then in this panel. But that's a key.
And Santtu, from the Hinku cooperation, what kind of examples of radical decoupling can we find?
I would say that many municipalities belonging to Hinku network are recognizing that they need to work with the businesses. We need to have cooperation with the private and public sector and with the businesses. And also municipalities they see that they can signal by becoming climate neutral that we are creating this kind of operating environment for businesses. So if they locate there, they can benefit from that location decision in the global market also. So because they can produce lower emission products and export them to abroad. And then this kind of linking could, like, then the emissions reductions and climate neutrality could be positively linked to economic growth in these contexts.
Let's bring this to our free realist cities. How do you work with businesses? Yes, Mika.
Yeah, of course, within the green transition, we work very hard. For example, I usually have, there are a couple of weeks have been, during the last year, a couple of weeks have been so that I have every day a meeting with the companies about the green transition projects that we want to enhance. And there could be, of course, more. But we are kind of in a stage where the national level is very low, very slow in actions. The municipal level is somewhat slow, but the companies they understand that this has to change because they will not get money and their business is gone if the nature gets wild. So, and the insurance companies are the ones who are telling them. Mm-hmm. So the companies are actually, companies and the citizens are the thrivers for the change, so that we can, the politicians want us to ask companies and citizens what they want, and we get the same message to become carbon neutral very fast, because they see that it's their business opportunity in the whole change. And if we lose that possibility, we will be the losers. For example, Nordic countries are all very small, and we have to kind of be in the front of change, as we are facing a even bigger change than the last technological revolution in the 19th century. This is way more bigger and effective. Mm-hmm. And companies realize that there's a new stake to be dealt with.
Susanna, you or the city of Lund keeps winning these environmental prizes, and I saw recently that one of them clearly specified that was partially due to your successful work with businesses. What is your favorite carrot and stick in this work?
Well, I don't really work with the businesses, but I would like to bring in the construction business, and we have done a work on climate neutral buildings and circular buildings. And when we sell land, we are quite an attractive city, so we can put up some high demands when people want to buy our land. So during the last year, we've had some quite high demands, like 50% reduction. If you want to build this house in Lund, you have to do it in a way that reduces the emission with 50% compared to the standard house. And we've been really successful. We have had a lot of companies wanting to build the houses. So if we ask for it, they can actually deliver it. And sometimes we have to do it together, like discuss what are the prerequisites, what do you need and help from us as a city. But it's actually possible to do it. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, good example. I actually have the same, because but we also have cities that are not as attractive, where it's difficult to say no to a big establishment coming to the city. So here I think the cities need help from the national level a bit, of course. I'm not so much for carrots and sticks. I'm more like they need to work together. Something has to be difficult, then we have to make something else easier. For example, I think it's really positive that we are producing so much more solar power and wind power, and it's increasing every day. But somehow the fossil fuel energy is not decreasing. There is something, they need to balance each other out, otherwise we're not gonna reach our goals, of course.
Henrik, I sort of feel that I want to use you as a reality check and Vejle as a city where we really check whether things work. How do you get citizens buy-in for all the things that we're discussing here?
Well, I'm not working so much about with the citizens, but we have several initiatives about. We have, for example, we have a place called the Økolarie, where people can visit it. The pupils from the schools, they are visited and learn about climate and learn about environment. So that's one thing. And we have a new resource center where you can learn about recycling, for example. So, and that's a lot of other initiatives about that. But I would go back to that about the private companies and said we are working, collaborating with some private companies with Energi, so that they can have their own energy from solar cells and from windmills. And also the so-called SDG. I find that the companies are more interesting to work with climate now, to work to get more carbon free. So we are working with that.
Excellent, and it's going to be exciting to follow up. We got several questions actually from the chat. Thank you for those sending those in. One is about the ownership of the model. How do we make sure that there's a sense of ownership, and how do we give that to the local community? Is that something that any of us work with, and do we have any positive experiences to share? Go for it.
I will bring up the climate city contracts again that the cities have. In that, the cities they create transition teams in the city where all the different sectors and actors and citizens are part of the movement of the city, and I think that is also important to allow citizens to test stuff without the city controlling it too much, to give people the sense of ownership. In Sweden, we are a bit controlling, perhaps, or we like to control everything within the frame, at least. We're afraid of going outside of the box too much.
Henrik?
Yeah, I had an example. We have several what we call climate villages, where they got some money from the municipality and can work with climate in their own village. And so that's a way of getting people urgent about this matter.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I would continue from here. That in Hinku network, the municipalities joining the network, they need to decide on the joining by the municipal council decision, and of course if something is not seen like appropriate from the citizens' perspective regarding that decision, then of course municipality can leave out the network, but no municipality has left the network, so basically it has some kind of like commitment in that sense. And regarding the, I think the communication side is very important in this work, because typically people tend to think that okay, climate work it is quite hard, and citizens would need to make all the things like simultaneously and right now. But what we try to communicate is that everyone does his or her share of the work, and when, for example, these big consumption decisions are made, then one should look into what is sustainable, what is suitable for me, and what is sustainable. And so, in my opinion, this communication part is very important.
I totally concur. Speaking about communication, let's get a question from the audience here. We've got, yes, the microphone is coming right to you.
Hi, Jonas Frickman from RegLab, a national arena for regional development. I have a question or two questions to the panels that might be related, of course. I wonder a little bit about the challenge of rural municipalities, areas that might be more poor than rich municipalities in order to reach the climate neutrality goals. It might be lack of resources, lack of competence, the transport situation, the infrastructure situation might be totally different. The need for public transportation in relation to the demographics and so on. I want to have the positive side. I'm not out for the negative side, but it would be interesting to learn some issue from experiences from both the networks and the realistic side. And in relation to that, what key role could the regions play? Because we have not talked that much about the regional level and the possible role to promote climate neutrality.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And we also actually have several questions in the chat about the rural perspective, saying that cities cannot live by themselves. They need to be supported by food and so much else from the rural areas. So bringing both the negative and the positive side of rural areas, starting with Lund.
Well, we came into food, you mentioned, and agricultural land is one of our biggest conflicts in Lund, the trade-off between growing and saving the agricultural land. We're not a rural municipality, but we still have some smaller towns further from the city, and we really need to support them with public transport, for example, and making them sustainable in themselves. They need to have places where you could work, and for the young people to spend their free time and so on. But I also think, yes, we are an attractive city and we're growing, and we need to learn quite a lot and share with other municipalities that don't have the muscles to do all this creative work and innovative work. So we need to find some solutions and share with the rural municipalities, I would say.
How is this done in Vejle, the cooperation between inner city and rural areas?
Yeah, how can I say that? We're working at the same level in the rural areas. We have in Vejle 4 cities with 5,000 to 10,000 inhabitants outside Vejle, and of course we are working. It's not. You can not densify those cities the same way as you can in Vejle. So it's another way of working with it. Yeah, and public transport is of course one of the issues. It's an issue: where do you work, where do you live? And I think some of the great problems we have to deal with in the future, it is traffic, as we said, but it is also that detached houses in Denmark has been growing from 160 square meters in 25 years ago to more than 210 square meters today. And how can we also decline this one, both in the inner cities, mostly in the inner cities? Maybe they can allow to live in a little bigger houses outside the big cities, because it's other problems there. So that's one of the things we are working with. Yeah, I don't think that will answer your question.
It did. It helped us. Time passes quickly when we're having important, so we need to wrap this up. And I want you to combine the answer that you wanted to give, and then one advice from all of us. What is particularly relevant for us to bring into the coffee discussion that we're just going to have, including those that follow online? Key takeaway from the discussion, and what you wanted to just bring up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the rural poor area. So that, for example, in Hinku network, we as a coordinator, we try to help especially those rural municipalities. So we try to help them with providing these climate roadmaps and what they need to do in order for them to reach the targets. And then typically these kinds of municipalities, they have large land use, or they have forests, they have agricultural fields and so forth. So basically we could do many kinds of things in the land use sector to increase the carbon sinks in there. So that is one thing to consider. So basically compensates part of the emissions emitted. But yeah, maybe the key takeaway from my side would be that as we are trying to enhance the cooperation with the municipalities, regional levels, and the national levels in the future, so this would be, so we provide information for the national policy making, what should be done for supporting the regions, cities, to reach the climate neutrality.
Thank you so much, Santtu. Carina.
Yeah, I think my key takeaway is that we should not create any kind of conflict, even if we are now here, trying to have a bit of a one. But I think that is our strength, that we end up in the end anyway, agreeing on everything. Everyone that worked in the city in the Nordics know the political game, that they have debates in public, but then they go to the coffee room and they are best friends and they try to find a consensus anyway. And I think that is what's gonna make us succeed. And also another one is to always remember to celebrate success, to always show the people in the city or wherever you are what's happened the last year. We have made some progress, and celebrate that to keep people the hope up.
That is a great takeaway. Susanna?
I would bring in the resource perspective as well. Working with the building construction part of the city, we can build quite good new houses, reducing the carbon footprint, but the resources are still not there for. We need to reduce the resource use as well, and we need to help the circular economy to be up and running, both from the private consumption perspective, but also in the building consumption perspective. And we need to be better to use the already built constructions, both in buildings and infrastructure, and not demolish and build new ones, but change the way we use buildings and find other ways, innovative ways to plan cities.
Thank you for that. Great advice for us. Mika?
Yeah, I start from the history. We had almost half a century of urban sprawl and overconsumption in Finnish cities and other Scandinavian cities, and that has led to this wicked problem we have. It's a nature problem, climate problem, but it's also a social and economical problem. And kind of not a silver bullet, but maybe silver-plated bullet is that if we end the urban sprawl, then we support the existing services, existing schools. We don't have to shut down them so much. We don't have to build new schools for just 20 years. We can use the old structure and networks more efficiently. It's cheaper to be economical and climate friendly. We don't, if we end the urban sprawl, we don't destroy the carbon sinks. We don't destroy the nature more than maybe in some little places. World is not perfect, but if we end the major negative effects, that's the case.
Thank you, Mika. Henrik, lastly?
Yes, in Vejle, the politicians had made a vision called we have to give more than we take. And we try to transform that into urban planning. For example, we have something called nature first. So when we develop Vejle from now on, we have to make about 10 to 20 to 30% nature in new development areas, and to have smaller plots and smaller houses. That's what we are aiming for.
That is great advice, and that also leaves me to another key takeaway from us and the organizers. We heard Lucian, who was shaping the whole topic for us, and for those of us who want to dig deeper into the discussion about climate neutral cities, city planning, spatial planning, there's a specific workshop tomorrow. Make sure that you sign up for that if you're interested, and let's all make sure that we give the panel here a very warm hand for their interventions.